to it.
where's Oh, okay. Blair is the one that just the phone number. I got you. Thank you, Blair.
Okay, so I'm going to mute myself so that you don't hear the background here, but I will unmute myself for comments. Thank you.
Okay, Steve just entered, and I'll start recording whenever you're ready, Matt. Oh, sorry, Cam got to it first.
All right. Well, we have almost the full planning board here. I don't know. Was Andrea intending
Andrea
to
is
join?
not coming. She's
Okay.
away through the middle of August.
That's great. So we will get started. So good evening, everyone. This is the July 23rd meeting of the Brookline Planning Board. We have a handful of items on the agenda tonight. First, as typical, an offer to take comment on matters not on the agenda. I'll start with the planning board members who are here. And if you have anything to note or ask about, please take the opportunity to do so. Seeing none, I'll make the same offer to members of the public who are here for discussion or comment only on matters not on the agenda. If you would like to make a comment on something on the agenda, you can use the React tool at the bottom of your screen and raise hand, and we can promote you to speak. I only have one screen tonight, so I got to flip through. Okay. Seeing none. Oh, wait, sorry. Is it Joshua? Are you trying to wave your hand to say something? No. All right, let's start in with our first case then, which is 31 Harvard, and I believe Maria is going to introduce this one.
Good evening. I'm Maria Morelli, Senior Planner in the Regulatory Division, and this case is 31 Harvard Street. It is subject to the Harvard Street form-based zoning, in particular, Section 11-9 Site Plan and Design Review for Standard Project. In this case, this is a by right project. They don't need zoning relief, but it does trigger site plan review before the planning board, and the planning board in this case is the permit granting authority. The proposal is to construct a fourth floor to add one dwelling unit. That's an additional 1,332 square feet for a total of 5,823 square feet of gross floor area in a mixed use building. And what we've provided you with is a technical team review, which goes through application completeness. There are certain things that were waived because it is 100% impervious cover. So there isn't a stormwater management report due. There isn't a traffic study that's due. It's not a remediation site. There was a neighborhood meeting, which is a requirement under this bylaw, which the applicant did conduct, and there was public notice. At the time I wrote the report, there was no public comment, but since then there was one letter which has been sent to the board, and it was from the tenant who has the ground floor art studio, and I understand that the applicant has been in contact with the tenant. I'm not going to necessarily go through the zoning unless you want me to. It doesn't require relief. I think the best thing to do is to turn it over to Kelly Boucher, who is the architect, and Josh Sander is the applicant. So if we could just make, I'll just make them both co-hosts and we'll turn it over to them.
And just to confirm, there's nothing linked to the agenda center, right? So anything that they're showing tonight, we've not had access to?
Yes, no, you have. So it's in the agenda, hearing materials are posted to the project page. It's a lot easier to just link you to the project page. So everything, all of the technical team review report, the staff report, the plans and any letters. I should just also point out that this does trigger demolition, and it is a significant building. The 12-month stay is waived because the applicant did seek a lift of stay and the Preservation Commission granted it. And all of those letters are also on the project page. And I'll put that link below after I promote Kelly. Or actually, could you promote? I don't think I can promote her.
Kelly's all set. She's been promoted. She can share if she needs to.
Excellent. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Welcome, Kelly.
Thank you very much. My name is Kelly Boucher. I'm the project architect for 31 Harvard Street, and I'm here with Josh Sander, who is the property owner.
Hello.
I'm going to take you quickly through our presentation. Can everybody see the screen?
Yes.
Yep.
Great. So 31 Harvard Street is located in Brookline Village, and it's in the new form-based zoning for Harvard Street. So Josh, being the homeowner, came to me and said, you know, the city's is proposing this new zoning and we're interested in testing it out. So he came to us and we have proposed to add a 4th story onto his building. The project, as Maria already gave a very helpful description of, is going to add 1 new unit. So it's currently a ground floor retail and 2 flat apartments above for 3 total stories. There is a stair that already goes to the roof that we're going to reuse, and we're proposing to add another story onto the building. Here is our site survey, and you can see from this survey that most of our site is actually our building. So Harvard Street is here along the bottom, and we're on the 0 lot line on the front and the 2 sides. There's a small parking space in the back, and then a little bit of area also across the passageway. I'm going to go to this, which I think is a little bit easier to show. So here's our site plan. Our existing site plan is here on the left, and we've got 3 cars that fit in here. And what we're proposing to do as part of our site improvements include increase in permeable open space. Oh, sorry about that. Sorry, guest presenter. So we are removing some asphalt at the back to create a little bit of a permeable area at the rear, which now is quite congested with pavement. We're proposing some upper floor terraces above that will increase our open space. And we are have included to add a trash enclosure as well as a hose bib to help remediate the trash situation that's behind the house. This new permeable open space will increase our site permeability by over 13%. And the other sustainable selected site measures that we've chosen from the new form-based zoning is to preserve the trees. There is a tree back here that's pretty much paved right up against the trunk that we will preserve during construction. We're converting our impervious surfaces are greater than 10%, and we are going to install biofiltration as well. Our existing plan doesn't propose, any work. Stop. At the lower floors. So the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd floor are basically unchanged. The existing, what is the roof plan now, has a roof access stair, which we're going to remain, and then we're going to infill with a new unit that is similar to the unit below, just a single flat unit. And we'll also extend the back stair up to the unit so that it has 2 means of egress. Here's the existing front elevation with Tongwood retail space at the front, and then the 2 stories of residential living. And here's our proposed addition up at the top. We, like Maria said, we will meet our zoning, so our proposed project will be compliant for building height and all the other zoning metrics. Here's the rear elevation, where here's that back staircase that now is the 2nd means of egress for these units, which will get extended up to our new 4th floor, as well as a new little outdoor living space for that unit. Here's a building section. This side's a little bit easier to see. We were at the historic department because currently the roof has a very strong slope from front to back. There's a little parapet wall along Harvard Street. And in order to make the building not as tall, we are going to remove this roof only and build it flat instead of starting at the high point and then building an over roof So that's why we were at the historic department. And here is projected rendering. So here's the building now, and this is what our upper floor is proposed to look like. We were maintaining the fenestration patterns from below. And here are a few more 3D views. So across the top is what Harvard Street looks like now. And then the views down on the bottom are what we propose it would look like afterwards. So that's a description of what we're planning to do. I'm happy to open it up to questions or comments from the board.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm just trying to catch up on the staff report. So Maria, it's just design review. There's no relief needed.
There is no relief needed. Yep, we've gone through all of the applicable zoning and there's no relief necessary.
Okay. Yeah, conceptually, I think I have no problem with this. Obviously, the idea of the form-based zoning was to have some predictability about massing. And there is a list of materials that are allowed within that. And the idea has been, I think, along this part of Brookline to put housing over retail, which is exactly what this is doing. So I think I'm generally in support of it, but let's go around and hear what other members have to say. Steve, you raised your hand first.
Yes, thanks, Matt. So I generally agree with this seems to fit with what is conceived as the way to go on Harvard Street. My question is about materials. They're not labeled on the elevations. I know that we expanded the list of allowed materials from the original list, but I wonder if Kelly could tell me what the window materials and what the wall panel materials are.
Sure. The window materials are the existing windows in the building are black Harvey vinyl windows. And the lower floors are not having their windows replaced. So our plan is to put the same window to match on the 4th floor as is below. So that will be a black colored Harvey vinyl window. And the siding material is intended to be cementitious hardy siding with plastic trim above that will all get painted in.
Yeah, I'm just looking. I'm not sure that we allow vinyl windows. That's did you look at the Chapter 11 material standards? I mean, the updated standards. I'm looking at that myself on part of my screen, but I'm not seeing the window materials. I know they were expanded, and at one point we didn't allow aluminum windows. We only
And I
allowed.
just show that page. I'll just share my screen
Okay.
and just show that page so that you can see
All
it.
right,
Sure.
go ahead. Thanks, Maria.
While we're does it look like double hung windows on the 2nd and 3rd floor? Are you proposing casement windows on the new 4th floor?
Yes, casement windows.
Okay, so this is the section on windows.
Yeah, frames, wood, fiberglass, composite, pre-finished. So we don't allow vinyl. You could use fiberglass.
Sure. We're happy to use a material on the list. We're a little early. We haven't shopped for actual windows yet or started any construction planning or anything specific like that. So
Yeah, I think some of us architects on the planning board, encourage the expansion of the list of allowed materials. I think it initially didn't even include aluminum, and we probably, failed to make sure that we allowed solid PVC, UPVC windows, which a lot of people are using now. But I think vinyl was not on this list because it's not considered a good long-term product. So that's just one. I think your fiber cement siding is fine, but you need to think about making sure your windows conform to the bylaw because we cannot give you relief.
yeah, we're happy to pick a compliant window.
Yeah, I think we chose vinyl because I'm pretty sure the windows below are vinyl, so we're just going to match them. But yeah, I mean, it's no problem to switch the type.
You'll be better off not using vinyl, and they'll look
Fade.
solid.
All right. Other members of the planning board have sorry, Steve, are you
No,
wrapped?
I'm good. That was my only question.
Okay. Tommy, Linda, Mark, Blair.
Yeah, we're good. I'm
Yep.
good.
Looks good to me. Like housing.
All right.
So
right.
a question that the construction looks like will be achieved through the back. I didn't realize you had such a generous space in the back of those buildings. I had no idea. Not ever being back there, but I assume that's where the construction will be staged.
Yes, we will definitely have to stage from the rear.
Okay.
Matt, I heard you ask if Blair had any comments. is he in the meeting? I don't see him.
He is. He's
He
on a
is.
cell phone.
Oh, okay.
All right. So I'm looking for. Go ahead, Blair.
I was just going to say, I was going to abstain. I could not download find those drawings, so I wasn't able to follow any detail here. So I'm going to abstain from the vote.
Okay, fair enough. All right, I'm just looking for the motion, which is usually
Oh,
in the report.
Actually, it is a hearing, so if you want to take any public comment.
Oh, sorry. And while public comment is being taken, where will I ultimately find the motion?
Yep,
'Cause-
so I'll put the motion up on the screen.
Thank you.
Just give me just a moment.
All right. So as Maria reminded me, are there members of the public who are here with comment on 31 Harvard Street? If so, you may use the react button at the bottom of the screen and raise your hand, and we can promote you to turn on your microphone and camera.
Okay, I'm not seeing anyone,
Yep.
but if someone pops in.
Oh, Lindsay
Lindsay
Davis.
Yeah, okay.
Hi,
Hi, Lindsay, welcome.
Hi, thank you. Are you taking comments on the construction management plan at this point?
We're
I don't know
taking,
if there is one yet.
we're taking comments on the project there. If you look at the staff report, there are terms for a future construction management plan. Usually that is actually done when a GC, a general contractor is brought on board. It's a little too early to actually create one, but a construction management plan would have, the applicant would be required to have like a website indicating what the construction schedule is, the contact information for the project manager, the duration or key milestones in the construction process. And also the construction management plan itself has to be reviewed by the health department, building, fire, police, transportation, so that it's very clear what the staging is, the hours of operation, dust and rodent, all of that, noise management. There are a lot of standard boilerplate things that go in the CMP, and that also would be available to the public. Were there any concerns that you had or any questions that you have?
Yeah, so I run a psychotherapy business in the building 33 Harvard Street, and my office directly abuts 31 and is on the 3rd floor, which would be most likely to be affected by any noise, vibration, anything that occurs in the course of this construction. And I wanted to register some concerns because what I read in the materials with regards to the CMP essentially, I mean, it makes sense based on what you just said, sort of says, we'll try not to bother you too much, is sort of what I took away from what it currently says. I'm concerned that it will substantially affect my business as well as the piano studio that is also on the 3rd floor of 33 Harvard Street. That also abuts 31. And we have 3 businesses in that building that abut 31 and are all businesses that depend on quiet enjoyment of the space. So it's a considerable concern for at least me. I don't want to speak for the other tenants of the building, but I imagine that they would not have any gripes with my comments here.
Okay, thank you very much, Lindsay. And there is construction in very congested urban areas, but our planning commissioners, our building department and our building commissioners are really experienced with working out construction management plans and involving the applicant, especially if there are certain sensitivities or unique circumstances in that particular situation. So I don't know what the final terms would be. That's usually not worked out at this stage, at the permitting stage, but it is an important part of their getting a building permit. So they would have to have an approved CMP before they can get a building permit.
Okay, understood.
Joshua and Kelly, do you have a contractor lined up yet, or will you be bidding this project? Do you know?
We have one we're most likely going to work with. He's worked in Brookline a lot, so he's pretty familiar with, the requirements of the CMP and working with the building department.
Yeah, we have a project in my neighborhood. I would encourage the superintendent just to build a good rapport with the abutting neighbors, maybe exchange cell phone information. So if there is a reason to cease work for an hour for whatever unexpected occasion, that there is a direct line of communication. That's been very helpful in the one that I'm experiencing now.
Okay, that's fair.
Okay, is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Okay, Matt, I'm going to share my screen so that you'll have the motion.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the project websites. It just throws me off my game a little bit.
Okay, so this is what I've highlighted. This is recommended language, and there are lots of conditions, but these are really boilerplate conditions that are typical for these projects. And whatever the staff, or where, say, the health department had jurisdiction, they signed off on things, they memorialized anything that was unique to this project was memorialized in the conditions. And if you
Great,
have
we'll
any
ask-
questions, I'm happy to go
Yep.
through it.
Josh, I'll ask you as the owner, are you comfortable? Have you had a chance to read the conditions?
I not in depth. I've just kind of breezed through them, but I'll take a look. You know, as soon
Okay,
as
I
we're
mean,
done.
what I'd recommend, if you're okay with this, I'll read the highlighted, we'll make the vote, and I won't go through each condition verbally. But obviously, invite you, if there's something in there that was unexpected, let us know at the staff level. Go back to Maria, because I want to be efficient in how we use our time, and reading a bunch of conditions is probably not the best thing.
Of course, yeah.
Okay, so the planning board approves the plan of record cited in the decision for application for standard project site plan and design review for the project pursuant to zoning bylaw section 11-9, subject to the conditions of this decision and pending the Board of Appeals approval of any required special permits or variances as determined necessary by the building commissioner. Should the project require any relief from the zoning bylaw, the decision shall serve as the planning board's report to the Board of Appeals. Can I get a second?
Matt, could I just ask, not that you
Sure.
read all the conditions underneath, but just scan through it so we can see what the sections I see, fire safety
Sure.
and others,
Yep.
just the heading so that we can
Yeah,
see.
sure. I'll go through that. So we start with fire safety. This is a lot of boilerplate. And there are a lot of things that have to be certified to the fire chief. This is typical. And then what we do is, with these conditions in general, it's always tied to a milestone, whether it's the building permit, a demo permit, or certificate of occupancy. And so there's also protection of public property. There are certain things that have to be done prior to commencement of construction. Any public or private tree protection. And then this is the section on construction management planning. As you can see, through A through P are a lot of the things that have to be included in a construction management plan. And then you're really not limited to what is here, because the CMP is under the jurisdiction of these various departments that you see: police chief, fire, building, transportation, and health. Okay, and then this will be helpful to the public, but this, in addition to that plan, if there's anything that has to do with, crane equipment, that has to be worked out, of course, if it's a tight site, and anything that, pertains to unloading of equipment and so forth, and also the conditions of our public roads, all of that is covered in the CMP. Excuse me. This has to do with building and site design, and we're just memorializing a few things about the fact that the Preservation Commission did grant a lift of stay based on the decision, or using the plans that you saw. There are things that we'll have to sign off for, different departments have to sign off for, and those are the plans that we need to see. For instance, what the planning department needs to see in order to sign off for the building permit. Kelly went through all of the stormwater and sustainable site design features. Those things are memorialized. A fourth thing that was voluntary is that the applicant has opted to put a solar reflexive or a cool roof, and higher than what we recommend for a solar reflective index on a cool roof. And these things all help mitigate urban heat island impacts. And I'm also the construction, again, this has to do with, in relation to the construction management plan, warrant Article 14 was passed at town meeting in 2022. And this means that applicants or property owners who are doing projects like this have to post a sign at the site and also have a publicly accessible website with all pertinent information. That does go a long way with working with the public. And this has to pertain to really air quality, noise, vibration, dust, and blocking of any roads. Again, this is really boilerplate. And then going on to, prior to certificate of occupancy, again, we're reviewing plans to make sure that everything was built in accordance to what was approved. And there are also various other things related to the certificate of occupancy that involve the building commissioner. The trash and recycling management plan, if you are familiar with the zoning, if it were a new building, it is mandated in the zoning that all trash has to be stored within the building footprint. The exception is if you have an existing building and that can't be done, you are allowed to have a storage area outside the building footprint, but it has to be in an enclosure with a lid covered at all times. The health department reviews these trash and recycling management plans to make sure that what is proposed will actually service the proposed program. And this is not, so it's not something that someone is going through lip service, but the Director of Health and Human Services does approve the plan, the size of the toters, the frequency of pickup and so forth. And I would say this is a really tight site. So it was just really a marvel to see the architect and the applicant really work hard to come up with a more sustainable site and one that would have an improved trash management plan. So that was great. Some of the things that I highlighted were just conditions that I added since I submitted the first set of conditions to you. And then the general is really just has to do with general boilerplate. If anyone's aggrieved, this is how they can appeal the decision and so forth. So this is a decision that would be filed with the town clerk. There's a 20-day appeals period. And then if there are no appeals, it gets filed with the Registry of Deeds. And again, we send out notification to abutters when we do file the decision. Any questions on what I've gone through?
No, but thanks, Maria, for just giving us a summary of that.
Sure. Okay, I'll stop sharing and then you can proceed with your vote.
Thank you. So I made the motion. I'm still looking for a second.
I'll second.
I'll take Steve's second since I saw him raise his hand at the same time as Mark. We'll do our roll call vote. Steve?
Aye.
Linda? We didn't hear you, but you're on mute, but I assume that was an aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Mark?
Aye.
Tommy?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, and reminder Blair was going to abstain from this vote. So I think, right, Blair?
Yes, yes, he was.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Very much.
Thank you. Appreciate your hard work.
All right, our next item, I believe, is the 26 Pleasant Street. A reminder to the board, we saw this when it was first being considered for town meeting for the past spring meeting. It did not make it to that town meeting, but we'd have had an overall presentation. I assume some things have changed in the intervening months, so we'll hear about those. I did attend the public hearing that was held by the project team last week at one of the churches on Harvard Street. Reasonably well attended. I don't go to enough of those to know what a typical crowd size is, but there definitely was a neighbor turnout, including town meeting members for this already. So I think we may be the second stop, and Attorney Allen can confirm before the second stop or not, and how many more stops there are. But a reminder, everybody, this is for a warrant article. So this is an opportunity to help the team that's going to put the warrant article on the warrant make any adjustments to it that might improve its chances of passage by town meeting by taking in the feedback now. This is not a building proposal. We're not talking about the architectural design. This is about the zoning that's being proposed. So keep that in mind, including my fellow planning board members. You're going to see a building. This is not what we're here to talk about, although the building may be helpful in understanding what the zoning would allow. So I just wanted to put that out there as a start. And I believe,
I'll add
Polly, you're going to
another
do an
thing.
overview?
I'll add a couple of things, Matt. I'm Polly Selko, Regulatory Planning Director. Keep in mind, this is a citizen petition. So it's not something the planning board is proposing. It's being submitted for fall town meeting. And the warrant closes on September 3rd. The planning board will hear this proposal again after the warrant closes and before town meeting, because you're required to make a report and recommendation to town meeting on it. There have been some changes since you last saw it. The number of units were reduced from 103 units to 96 units. They added the details of the setback relief, the revision of open space standards, addition of specific parking requirement, 0.5 as a minimum. Is it, excuse me, point? And addition of the unit count and maximum and minimum unit size section, and an expansion of the summary explanation to describe the newly added pocket park, roof deck, landscaped open space, and updated project metrics. Now, there were several emails that were submitted about this project, all of which have been forwarded to the planning board. So I would suggest that if you were the author of one of those, you do not need to repeat what's in those letters. It would just be if there's something new. I'm going to introduce Taylor Lee, who is the attorney working with Attorney Jeffrey Allen on this case. And Taylor, maybe you could put up the actual zoning and go through that for the board, because there have been a few changes in the actual wording of the zoning since you last saw it.
Thank you, Polly. Jeffrey and Todd Fremont Smith are on the line, and they're going to take you through the presentation.
Yeah. So what you see today is slightly different from what you saw 6 months ago, whenever it was, because what we tried to do is take some of the comments we heard from neighbors and also from other people throughout the town of things they would like to see in zoning. But as you know, we're months away from a vote. Anybody voting, whether the planning board or the select board or town meeting. So this is really an opportunity for us to introduce the planning board to interested members of the public who weren't able to come to the neighborhood meeting, which Matt sweated through because we, in poor vision, rented a room that didn't have air conditioning. But this is to allow certain neighbors and anybody in the public that wants to get exposed to this project. As the process moves forward, as you know, we probably have about a dozen, if not more, public meetings in our very near future, starting probably in September. So this is really truly an introduction. What we tried to do is keep the basic plan, because Brookline rightfully wants to see what, when you propose a zoning bylaw change, people still want to see what you can build there and what you're thinking of building there. And we're going to take you through the zoning and the plan, but I want you to understand that that's a concept plan. One of the one critical aspect of this zoning, which we purposely have put in the zoning before and kept in this one, is that it will be subject to section 5.09 of the zoning bylaw, which, as you know, but maybe some members of the public don't know, means that you, the planning board, will have great input in the design of any building that goes forward. And we expect that, given its 96 units, that it will go through the design advisory team process, which, as you know, is very much a neighborhood input comes through that process. So So as you look at the design today, keep in mind that this clearly is not a final design because we've invited your input, not tonight, but in a design review process. So that's the key aspect of the zoning. We also put in the zoning flexibility so that if, for instance, some member of the planning board makes a suggestion during the design review, we won't say, well, the zoning doesn't allow that. We have flexibility to incorporate your views. As I think Polly mentioned, it's a 96 unit proposal, 96 rental apartments. It will be 7 stories, 85 feet. It will comply with the inclusionary zoning 100%. That's in the bylaw, makes no changes to the inclusionary zoning for this. It has 0.5 spaces for parking. As you know, it's very much a transit oriented location. The maximum FAR is 4.0. One of the things that we got feedback from members of the public is that they want unit sizes in the zoning bylaw, or they prefer that. So the unit sizes are approximately 485 square feet for the smallest units to 1,240 gross square foot for the larger units. We've incorporated more open space, and we've included what we call a pocket pot. One of the reasons that the unit count went down to 96 is we pulled a portion of the building back, I think 25 feet on Pleasant Street, so we could build what the architects have referred to as a pocket park that would be open to the public but I must remind everybody that we're at the early stages, and although what you'll see is an architectural design, we certainly will incorporate a full landscape plan with a landscape architect as we go through the process, the zoning process. But what you're seeing now is in concept. So we've increased the public spaces, and we've made them public. You have the zoning before you. Kelly, you want to quickly put it up and you can go through it, and then we'll go over to Michael Brew. I didn't tell her she was going to have to go through the zoning, so.
It's okay, I've been working on it for a while.
This is a test I thought you already had all the zoning and gone through it, but so this is a test of how she reacts on the spot.
Can everybody see my screen okay?
Not yet. There we go.
Yeah, all right. So the first couple provisions are just the basic creating the overlay district and creating the overlay district map for 26 Pleasant Street. And then if we go down, same thing, creating the overlay district in the zoning bylaw by creating a new section and amending the table of use regulations to allow multifamily housing in this overlay district. And then we have additions to 5.06 of the zoning bylaw to add the overlay district and the purpose and intent. One thing that we recently added was the adoption of commercial use on the ground floor, which was a feedback we got from the town and the community.
Yeah, let me just jump in there. That was suggested by many members of the community. To have the option, there's no guarantee it will be, but to have the option of a small amount of commercial use on the ground floor. I might add that we ran that by town council's office and the moderator, and that does not change the Massachusetts choice majority vote.
And then we have the applicability of the overlay district, and notwithstanding anything that's in the warrant article, all of the other provisions that apply to an M1 district would still apply to this lot. We've added the permitted uses to allow multifamily housing, and also, as Jeffrey just said, to allow but not require ground floor commercial use. And then the dimensional standards, as Jeffrey just said, the maximum FAR will be 4.0. The maximum height will be 85 feet. And then we have specific setback requirements. So there are 2 front setbacks on Pleasant Street and John Street. So Pleasant Street will be a 10-foot setback and John Street will be a 15-foot setback. We have a 10-foot side yard setback and a 0-foot rear yard setback. And the rear yard abutting lot is also owned by the property owner of this property at 26 Pleasant Street.
Stop there for a second. As you see, Pleasant Street says 10 foot. That's the minimum. There's the majority of the setback on Pleasant Street, as you see the present design, is 25 feet. The 10 feet is only in the small area where the garage entrances are located, and we'll show that to you in a minute.
And then,
Okay.
so we have 2 provisions for usable open space and landscaped open space. So usable open space will be 3% and landscaped open space will be 5%. This notwithstanding 5.912D provision was just added today, so members of the board may have not seen that. And landscaped open space can both usable and landscape open space can be reduced by special permit. And then next we have parking, which Jeffrey mentioned. The minimum required parking in this overlay would be 0.5, so about 48 spaces.
No, about 48.
48 spaces. Then we comply with the inclusionary zoning section of the bylaw. We have the number of units and unit sizes. And this paragraph 5 is just adding a section to the table 5.01 of the dimensional requirements.
So as you can see, we kept the flexibility in there because you can take that down now. Because we are going to go through design review and we want to have that flexibility. And so let me just show you, one of the things I didn't mention is that this project meets 2 real criteria that Brookline has outlined as priorities, and that is the creation of housing and the creation of improvements to the tax base. Although this one probably is not in the planning board swing path, but this property now pays about $30,000 a year in taxes. In its first year of operation, it will pay $575,000 in taxes, and every year thereafter it will increase with the tax rate. So it's a significant hit on the taxes. It's a significant hit on taking down the amount of impervious surfaces, because it's right now an asphalt lot. Now, I want to touch on one thing, because I've read most of the letters that you've gotten in comments. There's a justifiable and concern on trees. We cannot possibly predict, unless a tree's in the middle of the site, which trees will be maintained or not at this junction, because we don't have the construction drawings, we don't have the mechanic, we don't have all of the engineering and so forth. But let me make it very clear. There's nothing in this zoning bylaw that we have proposed that impacts the tree bylaw. We will fully and completely comply with the tree bylaw in the development of this lot. And as we believe we're building a building that's rental. We're going to be there. Someone say something? We're building a building that we're going to own and rent, and we believe that the trees and landscaping will add tremendous value to our property. Not our property, the developer's property. So we are going to comply fully with the tree bylaw, and we will have a very heavy emphasis on landscaping. That'll probably be part of the design review package with the DAT. With me is representing the developers is Todd Fremont Smith. Todd, you want to kick off the review, but you have to unmute yourself.
I've learned that 4 years after COVID. Good evening, everyone. Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen of the board, Todd Fremont Smith with Nordblom Company. We did speak with you briefly about this project last spring. We're back for the fall town meeting. If Maria, could you promote me to share my screen? I could go over a very brief.
Or Polly. Or someone.
You're all set to share your screen.
Okay.
You're better off asking James.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, guys. So can you see my screen?
We can see it, but we can't see the document yet.
Okay. Takes a minute sometimes.
Here we go.
You see it now?
Yep.
Okay, great. So again, I'm with Nordblom Company. Nordblom Company is a family office out in headquartered in Burlington. Obviously the cast of characters here tonight, Jeffrey Allen, you know, Taylor, you just met. Myself, Michael Bro is from the architectural team. So we're working with TAT on the architecture here. Not listed here is Ian Ramey of Copley Wolf Landscape Architects, who is also working on the project, and George Ryan of Stantec Civil, who is a civil engineer on the project. Our little company has been around for about 100 years. It's a 5th generation family company. We're headquartered in Burlington. You might know, if you ever go out to the suburbs, you might know the Wegmans anchored 3rd Ave development in Burlington, where we have a bunch of restaurants and but 3 million square feet of commercial space in that market. The family has also been long invested in Coolidge Corner. They've owned properties here for about 60 years. This is just some of the properties. Green Street, this is actually a property that abuts the subject property to the rear, a smaller building, 18 units. The Regent, 65 units. So they tend to own these older historic properties. This is a property that Jeffrey helped us develop, 24 years ago. That's crazy. 51 units on Marion Square. Pelham Hall, this is, I remember as a kid, there used to be a Saab dealership in the base of this building. This property was actually sold about 5 years ago as part of estate planning, but we owned this property since the 20s. They acquired this during, I think, the Great Depression or something. And one of the other assets that the family just happens to own in Coolidge Corner is this parking lot at 26 Pleasant Street. So you can see the Pelham Hall building at the bottom of the plan, and then the 60 space surface parking lot. As Jeffrey said, it's an asphalt parking lot. It's a very valuable asset. It's great for cars. It's not so great for people to live in. And we just think that a higher and better use for this site would be housing, given the housing crisis. We also think cars are eventually going away, or many of them will go away. So we just think it's a good time to think about what this site could be. And so with me tonight is Michael Bro from the architectural team, who can take you through just the architectural massing of the project. And we have attempted to show you what we think would be a good building. We spent a good deal of time on this, but obviously we need to run the gauntlet and go through design review with Brookline. And our impression is buildings get better when we do that anyway. Jeffrey?
Yeah, I just want to jump in here. On this proposed site plan, you can see what I was talking about, how as you move down Pleasant Street, although at the top of it, where the garage entrance is, it's a 10-foot setback. As you move down towards John Street, it becomes a 25-foot setback. And if we can go to the next slide, I think it is. Yeah, you could see how we, in this a little bit, how we are creating what we call a pocket park. And we envision that to be open to the public. Can we go to the next slide, Todd, and then I'm going to turn it over to Michael.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Oh, yeah. This just shows that the height of our proposed building is consistent with the surrounding neighborhood. If you can see the BHA building to the right is a little drop, is either the same height or a drop higher, and across the street is the same. If we can go to the next slide.
You're taking up Michael's
No, I'm going to have him do the architecture. I'm going to leave the architecture to him.
Okay.
And this is another view.
That shows the heights.
I want to
We'll go
get
over
to.
We'll go over this again.
Yeah, and the heights, and that's, as you can see, the pocket part there. Now I'm going to turn it over to Michael because we're into
Okay.
more of the architecture.
Okay.
Can you go back to the site plan, please?
There you go.
So, so we've been working on this for a while and looking at it, and in the last few months, it's really been about how do we create a straightforward residential building that meets all the parameters of, housing, and then a balance between how much parking can we provide on this site to support that housing. But the biggest vision, I think, that has really started to solidify is the Pleasant Street urban design, urban realm proposal of really trying to do something that is the best of what you could find in Brookline and providing, a truly improved site over what's there today with this new, how do we maximize the amount of give back to the town in regard to this public open space along Pleasant Street. So if you click to the next slide, please. So you can see here, this is really, and again, as Jeffrey said, we haven't gone through any design with the town. This is really just testing out parameters, and what you're going to see in terms of the building, I would say, is more about intention and character and about how do we make a building that fits in with this neighborhood. You can see here, it's a L-shaped site. We have a T-shaped building in order to create this setback, which you can see there, the 25-foot setback and the pocket park. Building is directly across the street from the library. So we really feel like this could be an extension of that for the public, that people using the library could come across the street here. It's really this outdoor room in terms of its intention as a space for the public and people that live in the building as well. But you could see there was this balance of how do we create the parking and then it really is a very efficient footprint in terms of what we would provide inside the building at the ground. The way this is working right now from an urban design standpoint is there's two parking levels. One is accessed from Pleasant Street and the other one is accessed from a driveway that slopes down to this lower area behind the building. And we're creating this setback along Pleasant. You can see a section there. The way that we're achieving the garage, it's not a fully below grade garage. It's 5 feet down to go to the lower level and then 5 feet up to go to the upper level. So from a building architecture standpoint, that will allow us to do a higher ground floor space that we feel will be more appropriate for the building along Pleasant Street in terms of its urban design. You can go to the next slide, please. So again, this is just, a sketch. One of the intentions that we do have is that the building will not be just an extrusion, that it will be a formed building. There is a there is a amenity deck on the top floor as an intention, and we feel that that will help the building to step down in scale as it goes toward the Beacon Street corridor and for the neighborhood. We are incorporating some kind of residential elements that we are taking our cues from the kind of architecture along Beacon Street and other residential buildings in the area. We're using some balconies on the corner units to help animate the architecture of those corners. You'll also see we're integrating, or we would like to integrate or use as another tool, some bay window components, and we can move on to the next image. Again, this was really about the scale of the building. We've been studying this for a while, and what would feel right in this neighborhood in terms of providing the most amount of housing on the site, but also fitting in well. And it's right about the same size building as the two adjacent properties that have been noted. So this is really just a sketch again. The coloration of the building and these elements that I was just talking about is really about how to create a building that the scale will be broken down. You can see the expressed base with the tall floor to floor because of the garage. See the garage entrance to the right. The intention is that there's a lot of fenestration into the lobby spaces on the ground level to tie in with this outdoor pocket park. There's also amenities that are planned for the top floor, which will be illuminated, you know, at different parts of the day. We feel like it will help lighten the architecture to a great degree in terms of looking up at the building from the neighborhood. This is an image, again, just a sketch. We haven't started designing this, but it does show the kind of space that we're planning within this 25-foot setback. You can see the building entrance, which is to the right-hand side, and then the remainder of the space given up to this park. And the thought is that it's a place for multiple groups of people. It's not a truly active space. It's more of a passive space, but a place where people could read a newspaper in the morning, you know, see their neighbors, and really try to just animate this as a public space for the neighborhood. Go to the next slide, please. So, and then we have two more finished renderings. I think the only difference between them really is you can see a little bit more about the liveliness of the architecture, in particular the top floor and the main lobby levels at the bottom and the pocket park. And this is another view of that space.
And
so
let me just jump in.
Yep.
The pocket park will be designed by a landscape architect in its entirety, and it may have less paved spaces and more green spaces, but that will all be part of the DAT process.
Correct. It's really just we're giving up this amount of space, and it will get designed through the design process with the town.
So I think that's pretty much what we
Yeah, just a summary, 96 units, 7 stories. It'd be an all-electric design. It would very likely be passive house. I have to look at the building codes, but codes are very tight these days. The building that we showed you, the zoning is written to allow that building, and this is a building that we think we can build even in these are very difficult times to build today, but we've designed it in a way that, as Michael said, very cleverly tucking the parking inside the building without going all the way underground, and a lot of other things that we've priced this out. And we could, if we do get approved by the town meeting, we can get building this, even in this market, we think we can build it. So we're asking for town meeting support. We're asking for your board support to go to town meeting to ask a simple question, which is maybe please build this building on this surface parking lot. There are some benefits, we think, to the community, such as creating housing, creating affordable housing. The 15% affordable housing that would be built inside this project, the hard cost alone is over $5 million just for those units. We are committed to quality public space. We've got Copley Wolf Landscape Architects on the payroll to do that. And as Jeff said, we have done a fiscal impact study. I need to revise that for 96 units, but the taxes grow from $30,000 to $550,000. It's a huge jump in taxes, and you're dealing with a developer that's been invested in Coolidge Corner for almost 100 years. So that's our story, and we look forward to hearing comments and questions.
Great, thank you very much. It was a thorough and efficient presentation, so thank you for giving us the time to now dive in a little bit. I want to just again, frame for the board. We're not talking about the building tonight.
Okay.
However, there is tension between the building and the zoning. I'll just point out one example. The zoning says on Pleasant Street, 10-yard setback. The building and the pocket park shows a 25-yard setback. So there are some things that, I'm sort of the opinion, are there things we can memorialize in the zoning so that the DAT has some expectation when we get to that process has some expectation of what the starting point might be for massing and position on the site. So there are some benefits to seeing a building as an example of what you could build, but I'm interested in where does the zoning restrict to that particular design, and where is it leeway that's helpful, and where is it leeway that might be detrimental in terms of predictability? So with that, I'll start with Steve.
Thanks, Matt. Just a couple of observations first, or a question for Mr. Allen. Am I correct that this building would be, or the zoning overlay would be eligible to pass town meeting by a 50% majority because it meets the criteria of housing choice?
Yes, we've run that by the moderator and have a written response that confirms that.
Yeah, which also, I'm not sure if when you have a commercial component, I know there was some suggestion by neighbors that this building, they prefer to see commercial space on the ground floor. Would that make housing choice not available?
That was the question we posed to town council and the moderator, and he felt that that did not negate housing choice because it's an option, it's not a requirement, and it's limited to just the ground floor.
Yeah, I'm not saying that I'm in favor of adding commercial on the ground floor because we've seen this kind of issue come up in other locations that are not, let's say, directly on Harvard Street. And it's, in my opinion, it's very difficult to fill commercial space in a location like this. The other point I wanted to make, and first, I'm glad to see the drawings. I know as a member of the Housing Advisory Board, we saw some drawings at least a year ago, and I was annoyed, frankly, that we didn't see them. I know that we're not approving a building, but it really helps to understand what you're requesting in terms of zoning relief to see how you're working within the parameters that you're trying to set up. But I did want to say, as a member of the Housing Advisory Board, that the more recent housing production plan that we helped produce specifically shows this site. There is a map entitled Site Suitability Analysis on, I think it's on page, got it up here on another part of my screen, page 79 of the 76 of the housing production plan. It shows this specific site. It's not labeled, but it's right there. It's actually, the site is right in the middle of the O in Coolidge Corner. That's kind of, showing you the area. It's a high priority site for housing development. So I'm glad to see Nordblum acting on that. And, I do think this is an excellent use of this site. I read the letters about the trees on the perimeter, and, I await seeing how you intend to deal with those. One other comment, the open space, I think the percentages that Taylor cited were a little bit different from what was in the zoning. They're low percent. Taylor, could you just repeat what your, what's
Yep. So the usable open space was 3% and the landscape space, open space was 5%. And those were recently changed, so they might not be what you have in the agenda
Yeah,
packet.
I think what I saw was 4%. I believe that your original warrant article proposal didn't address the open space problem. And
That's one of the bigger modifications this time around,
Right.
Steve.
I had another way of looking at that. The Harvard Street overlay district, actually Harvard Street, it's not an overlay, it's its own district. The Harvard Street district, I think our open space requirements are not workable in these higher density situations. Like a 10% of the project site for landscape open space. I mean, they're large numbers that you can't meet. I understand that. But the Harvard Street district, chapter 11 of the zoning bylaw that we just saw, that previous project, has a different approach. It only requires 25 square feet of open space per unit. And it doesn't separate ground floor open space or site open space from terraces and rooftops. The Chestnut Hill district that we just approved and town meeting approved requires 50 square feet of open space per unit. I remember thinking about this back in June, and I think I did some numbers, and I think you could actually meet 100 square feet of open space criterion per unit and do it that way, as opposed to, because these numbers seem small, 3%, 4%, whatever. I think it's another way of doing it. I don't know if it worked under the current circumstances, but that was the way I was thinking you might want to approach this, because that's the approach we've used in these other higher density districts.
The numbers that are on the plans is really because of the requirement for the size of an open space. So like the small spaces that go around the building, none of those are counted. So it's really just this, this space in front of the building that would meet those requirements. So that's why the number is what it is.
Uh-huh. I mean, I think the Harvard Street and Chestnut Hill zonings allow the use of roof decks and things like that to be counted as open space in a more generous way than our current zoning. Anyway, those are my preliminary comments.
And that's one of the benefits of coming here before we filed the warrant article. Thank you, Stephen.
On that last point that Steve made, we as a board have tried to encourage applicants to meet their open space requirements on grade and only rely on balconies and roofs if there is no other choice. So you have enough site area that I would hope you're able to strategize to meet it on grade, and then those balconies and the roof deck are additional open space. Mark, you had your hand up next.
Yeah, I just was make a comment on the shadow of the building. And I know that the Pocket Park is suggested for probably a southeast corner of the site, which is a good location. But across the street, there's going to be, I think it's 11-story building, very similar to this one, which is going to be a housing block as well with commercial space. And then I've read a lot of information and comments from the public related to the trees between the sites and so forth. And I know we're not talking about that tonight, but we are talking about the height as part of the zoning requirement or allowance. And I'm just wondering, how did you come about with the 7 stories? And can it be a shorter building?
I think it's 5/2 was the construction approach, right?
Exactly.
That's correct.
It's a technology-based measure.
We want to
Podium with wood construction above.
Correct. So we're leaving ourselves the option of a wood framed building. Again, there are 20,000 units in Boston that have been permitted, but which are not being built. We're trying to design to a construction typology which can be built today, even given the high interest rates, which appear to go higher and higher every day. We're still seeing construction inflation. We're still seeing interest rates going up. So that it was a combination of the type of building that we can afford to build. And also, I think just looking around at the adjacent abutting properties, which are all 85 feet or 90 feet in case of the, as we showed you. And I could put that diagram back up if you like to show the abutting buildings. I don't know what's happening on Waldo Durgan. I know that's going back into redesign, but we're not sure what's happening there. Not our project, yeah.
Anything else, Mark, from you?
No.
But Mark, we will do a full shadow study as part of our, if we get lucky enough to get the zoning window opened by town meeting, we would anticipate shadow discussions as part of your review.
Well, I just think that your Pocket Park's going to be shadowed by that 11-story building across the street. So maybe part of the community development might happen also around the library, where you would get more sunlight on that side of the street and less impact from the shadows from both of these potential buildings. And you might think about what could happen with that allowance there.
Okay, understood.
We are talking to the neighborhood in early September about neighborhood benefits that they think would be worthwhile.
I live in the neighborhood, so I'm very familiar
okay
with what's going on up there, and I think this is a good project, and I think that perhaps the construction or the actual shape of the building could be helpful in keeping as much sunlight in that corner, in that southeast corner where you're going to put the park.
To that point, the shadows will be what the shadows will be, because this is the building you anticipate being able to build within this zoning at that height for the cost. So it wouldn't it, I don't think. For you, so you have the computer model. Create the shadow studies now and make that part of the feedback loop now. Because
We can do that.
they can't, we're not going to make you make the building shorter to make the shadows less deep. You know, that's just so people aren't surprised by that later. You could front load
Okay.
that now.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if anyone built an 11-story building next door in the current market, but that's, again, not my project.
Yep.
That is one of the reasons why in the current massing that the terrace that's at the 7th floor is on that corner of the building. So it's actually a 6-story volume for about 65 feet in depth.
Yeah, and those kind of thoughtful moves that you've made, I think let's appreciate them now so people recognize that the mass is somewhat derived from those kinds of considerations.
Will do.
All right. Linda, anything on your, I'd be also interested, Linda, you're on the comprehensive plan committee. Obviously, that has not been finalized yet, but anything from that process about this part of Coolidge Corner and kind of the intentions the town has for it?
No. I mean, more affordable housing. I mean, that's, you know, sort of, we carry that through generations here in Brookline. And it's still sort of on the top of the thing, but you know, but also green space. And I mean, you know, recreation area for the community, gathering spaces, projects that bring people together. I mean, any sane person would want, you know, good government, good health, good parks, good housing. So, you know, we're not, you know, we're special, but it's what the world wants. I think Blair would like to speak, and he's that came up on my screen. So why don't we give it over to him?
I've lost his
telephone number.
Yeah, where is
this
it?
green thing here?
Blair, if you're there and you can unmute, oh, there you are. I see you. He's not. We'll come back to Blair. We'll go to Tommy since he is unmuted.
Oh, he's being muted.
So I had the same questions as Steve about the housing choice, making sure there's slots into housing choice. So happy to hear that that's already being taken into consideration. And then I was also going to ask for clarity on making sure this project would be able to comply with, you know, our tree bylaws. That was also already addressed. So I think the questions I had coming into the meeting were, you know, both adequately answered. So, you know, happy to hear confirmation of both of those things. And I don't really have anything else at the moment.
Great. I appreciate that you're putting the unit sizes in. Those are sizes the town is looking for. As you know, there are 2 major developments underway now that have a lot of micro units. So having something slightly bigger than a micro unit and up to what I assume are the 2-bedroom sizes helpful, because that is a need we have. I'm actually interested in. Sorry,
you know what? Sorry, Matt, I did have one more thing.
Yeah.
About the pocket park. Love to see a pocket park. One thing that may be worth considering, if possible, you know, we do, having just come through a pretty brutal heat wave, moving forward, you know, water features and things are nice. And, you know, I used to work in Washington, D.C., and we made it a point of emphasis to start adding, you know, things like in-ground, you know, fountains and things that could be used as splash pads in very hot weather. Things like that may be worth considering for an area like that is, you know, very dense, a lot of paved surfaces. Those areas can become heat islands, and moving forward over the course of 40, 50 years, you know, the lifetime of this building, could become useful to have things like that in a space like that that can be activated when needed. So
Thank you, Tommy.
To come back to your point, I just wanted to jump in talking about smaller units. A significant part, over 50% of this building is smaller units. For instance, in the unit count, we have 22 studios. And in the unit count, we have 46 one-bedroom units. Some of those will have a den with them, but the majority of them won't. So that a significant part of this building is units on the smaller size.
Yeah, which the assumption is those will rent for less because you rent by square foot plus amenities. I'm sure this building will have great amenities with the roof and other shared spaces so that the people who have those smaller units have opportunities to meet their neighbors. Another question, just I don't know if you went over it or not, that you have two different colored tones on the ground floor plan. I believe from the last time we saw you in February, one of those colors, I'm assuming, is still a management office. Is the other an amenity space for the building, or do you have thoughts on that? Again, the flexibility that one of those could become retail. I just curious what your thinking has been about those, because you've got quite a bit of glass facing an active pedestrian sidewalk with a park. What are they looking into?
We're looking at that to be determined, so to speak.
Yeah.
There's a possibility of a management office, there's possibility of ground floor commercial. We share a concern that was expressed, I forget by who, that this would not be a vastly sought after commercial space. But many people in town wanted to see the option there. So
Our preferred plan would be to have our management office there. So to be, office space through the window, you'd have leasing agents, management people. And then you'd also have a boutique residential lobby with mail, where people pick up their mail and take the elevator up. So it'd be a combination of management office space and a living room type setting, almost a hotel type boutique hotel lobby. It's a quiet use. We don't see this fundamentally as a takeout food place. It's not what we're trying to go for here. But we wanted to include it in the zoning just to allow for the flexibility that if a terrific user pops up, we can say yes.
Yep. And obviously the design review process would sort of look at, we don't want window shades down because it's an office and people want private. Like, we want to make sure that if it's going to have that much glass, it makes sense to have that much glass.
Yes.
I'm curious if it's come up in any of your conversations with neighbors. I have no idea. Remember years ago, the Coolidge Corner Library was having a space shortage. Has anybody suggested that there might be a ground floor space, which is normally for the tenants, but that could be rented for library events or gatherings?
Yeah,
it does seem like a really nice way to kind of build a bridge between that function and this.
We've done that. We've done that in other communities. Typically, what we like to do is put that up on the top floor to invite people in, go up to the amenities center with the roof deck and make that available for community meetings and functions. We would be open to that type of arrangement.
Yeah.
The one thing that has come up with talking with some neighbors is if we could tie our landscaping in with improved landscaping that we would do for the library. There's been some of the neighbors have been, shall we say, critical of the library landscaping.
Yeah, we do have Copley Wolf on staff. We'll definitely take a look at that. I think if we can tie this building and the Pocket Park could be viewed as an outdoor reading room for the library. If you could tie those two together with the proper pedestrian crossing and because they're directly across the street from each other, it does make sense. We'll look at that.
Right. So one more try. Blair, you have been able to unmute.
Yes.
Would you like to make some comments?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, great. So I have two comments. The first is that there's an understandable kind of incoherence between we're doing zoning and then here's a specific project. I find that a little bit confusing. I understand why it's being done. So that's one general comment. The other issue that I raised in the last meeting when we were looking at this is why the planning board doesn't, or the planning office doesn't think about whether this type of zoning should be extended further, for example, along St. John Street or along John Street. That's my comment. I don't have any objections to what's being proposed, other than, I don't have any objections to what's being proposed. Thank you.
Thank you, Blair.
Matt?
Yeah, I assume if other property owners were interested in being part of this overlay, they could either incrementally add their properties to it or join now if there was an interest in it. And maybe that this is starting to get some public visibility that some of that may happen. Steve, go ahead.
You know, I'm not suggesting that this be changed, but you know, at the other end of John Street, 2 blocks away, is the Babcock Street parking lot, another property which, under current zoning, you know, could not be developed to this kind of standard, but which is another site that was looked at in the housing production plan. And I don't know whether it makes any sense to think about an overlay district that somehow connects that property and this property. It would, if there were one larger zone, it would involve other properties which are unlikely to be modified in any way. But there is another very large parking lot in between them that looks to me like a potential development site. I think that's like going beyond what the petitioners are asking for, but it's something that might be worth thinking about.
Yeah, my assumption
but I
is
think
that
we're
this
doing-
is a citizen petition. They're focused on how can they make an impact on their site. If the town later wants to figure out how this is a model for something else, that could be facilitated. But inviting other abutters and other points of view into this particular process may make it untenable in the end. So it could be a very strategic move to keep it focused on this one property. It's my guess.
I know that there has been some criticism of this as potentially spot zoning, but you know, I've looked at that issue, and I think this one site, what's being proposed and the review that it's undertaking, meets all the criteria for a legitimate zoning overlay that is not spot zoning.
I'm going to move to public comment. I know we have a number of folks who've submitted letters who likely want to also speak. I ask that you don't read your letter. We've read it. If you want to highlight some of the important parts, I think that makes perfect sense. But we do have those written documents. We've by and large read them today. Most of them came in today. So with that, I'm going to start with Alyssa Plazanja. Cameron, if you can promote as we go through this, that'd be great.
Hi, Elisa Plazanja, Precinct 8. I'm co-leader of Brookline Mothers Out Front Tree Team and a board member of Climate Action Brookline, and I'm speaking for myself here. So I'm not sure that I know Mr. Allen has made claims that that this project will comply with the tree preservation bylaw. But if you read that bylaw and you look at what they're saying that they intend to do, which is to build to the setbacks, they will not be able to comply with the tree preservation bylaw, which requires that trees that are retained need to have a certain distance that is protected during construction. And there are trees along the property line between this 26 Pleasant and Sussman House that they don't have the right to remove. So they need to protect them. And as what they're asking for now will not provide enough room for them to do that. I'd like to point out that in addition to Brookline's goal of increasing our housing supply and increasing tax revenue, we have an official policy to maintain, if not expand, our tree canopy. Yet at every turn, we're approving projects that remove trees. In many cases, we have no choice, but this is the rare instance where we have significant influence over what happens on this property, not later during design review when we'll have absolutely, very limited leverage, but right now with this warrant article. So Mr. Allen and Nordblom are asking us to go on faith that all things trees will be worked out later. But if we approve this project as it's currently being proposed, despite Mr. Allen's claim that we can't possibly know what will happen to the trees unless they're in the middle of the property, all you have to do is look at the site map and look at what they're saying that they're going to do. And it makes it very clear that the end result is going to almost certainly be the loss of 15 mature trees, 7 of which are directly shading low-income senior housing in an area that is already a heat island. That's 15 mature trees that are providing shade from the blistering sun, 15 mature trees that are cooling ambient temperatures by up to 20 degrees, 15 mature trees that are cleaning the smoke-clogged air, 15 mature trees that provide respite from the harshness of our urban environment. 15 mature trees gone because they will either need to be removed to make way for the building, or they'll likely die within a few years as a result of the building and construction encroaching on their critical root system. Because despite Mr. Allen's assurances that the developer will comply with the tree bylaw, if they build to the requested setbacks, they will be unable to maintain the required tree protection areas. So I'm not naive enough to think that every tree on this property should or can be saved. But as things stand now, it seems likely that none of them will be saved. And there will be very limited space on the property to replant. If Mr. Allen and Nordblom, think that differently, they should submit a tree protection and mitigation plan now that will show they've got drawings of the building, they know where they're going to put the building. They can show us now exactly what's going to remain after construction and how they're going to protect it. Brookline as a community talks a lot about equity and justice, but there can be no housing justice without environmental justice, and there can be no environmental justice without trees. That's not just my idea, it's the opinion of the UN, and we need to start acting accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. I'm going to just take a bunch of public comments and then we'll have an opportunity for Attorney Allen and the team to respond in whole, because I imagine a lot of what we're going to hear is on the trees. The next hand I saw go up was Al Rain, and then Susie Roberts after that. We'll promote you in a second.
You should be all set to unmute, Al.
Yes, hi, Mr. Chairman, members, thanks very much. Al Rain, I live at 15 Linden Street, have lived in this part of Brookline for 47 years and used Coolidge Corner in all the ways that people love and use it. I'm a member of EDAB, of the Comp Plan Steering Committee, and I'm on the board of Brookline for Everyone, but speaking tonight only in my capacity as a citizen of the town. I think this is a good project, and I certainly hope it receives the planning board's endorsement and eventual enactment by town meeting. I'll make 3 points quickly. One is that the use could not possibly be more appropriate for this location. The fact that the housing production plan found it to be such reinforces what I think we all understand. Dense walkable housing in a mixed-use environment near transit is critical to climate resiliency in the region and in Brookline, and housing on this site will do that. The second point, for all the reasons you've heard and the height is perfectly appropriate. Surrounded by a 9-story building, an 8-story building, and whatever height, which will presumably be greater, is eventually achieved at Waldo Durgan. And the last thing I want to say is, when we talk about mixed-use development, it can sound a little formulaic, but the things that make for a mixed-use environment and community, this is a poster child for that. If you had the opportunity, hypothetically, to put multifamily housing next to senior housing, across the street from the library, across the street from the Green Line, steps from the movie theater, steps from the bookstore, a 5-minute walk from the Ridley School and its playground, you'd take any of those. This site gives you all of those as a place to put housing into the fabric of Coolidge Corner. So I think this is great, and I hope it happens. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Al. Next will be Susie and then Sean Lynn Jones. We'll promote you in a second.
Susie, you're all set.
So Susie, you should be able to unmute yourself at this point, and if you wish to turn on your camera as well, you can do that. She disappeared, so I'm going to keep going. We'll do Sean Lynn Jones and then Fran Perler, and we'll come back to Susie if she rejoins. Sean, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm Sean Lynn Jones, president of the Brookline Green Space Alliance, and also a town meeting member from Precinct 1. Not surprisingly, I'd like to talk about trees, but there are a couple of other points I want to make on different matters after hearing the presentation, which I think would be useful for the planning board and town meeting and DAT to consider. They're kind of on the line between zoning and design. The two really are linked, but they're really questions as well as comments. Is 0.5 parking spaces the right amount? Is it actually too high? And should we think about that? Related, very much where design and zoning go together, why is the entrance or exit or both to the garage on Pleasant Street? Strikes me that that's bad for streetscape, pedestrian unfriendly, and probably not such a good place for traffic safety either. And of course, where it is and how many vehicles come in and out may depend on that ratio of parking spaces per unit. But I wanted to put those points out there before I maybe a little bit predictably start talking about trees. I've got three general points on trees. First, the letters you've received, I hope you've read them, from Elisa and Olivia Fisher-Fox. Lisa just spoke. Fran Perler, Catherine Donaher, Gina Crandall, and I'm probably forgetting one. They make great points. I tend to agree with most of them, although I realize we don't know exactly what will happen on this site, and I'm willing to withhold judgment. However, the one thing those letters didn't do was go through the entire litany of the good things trees do. Trees help fight climate change by sequestering carbon, and buildings, like this proposed one, help fight climate change by creating high-density development in a walkable, transit-oriented district with more efficient heating and cooling systems than older buildings. And that's great. Buildings, on the other hand, don't clean the air, they don't clean the water, they don't manage stormwater. Most of the time, unless actually it's sort of a bad thing, they don't provide animal habitat. And sometimes that's deliberate. You don't want animals in your buildings, but trees are part of the wildlife habitat and the whole food chain, from insects all the way up through birds and mammals. Trees help property values, they help business, and perhaps most important, repeatedly studies show they help mental and physical health. And I'm reading this literally from what Jeff Speck, an urban planner, consultant, who's a huge fan of transit-oriented, high-density, walkable development, said when he spoke on walkability to a huge audience in the Coolidge Corner Theater a few months ago. I guess it was last year. But I think his basic point is the thing we have to remember. He said, in every community that he's ever looked at, trees are the least valued and most valuable aspect of that. Look at what's happening to trees in Brookline. The Urban Forest Climate Resiliency Master Plan, I'll just call it the master plan after this, found that between 2014 and 2020, Brookline had lost a net of 71 acres of trees. That's 54 football fields. Imagine 54 Gillette stadiums of tree canopy. And that's 3.5% of the tree canopy. We did a lot of things in those years. We built a lot of housing. We built a lot of classrooms. We reached an all-time high in population, but we went backwards on trees. And we didn't do that because Weyerhaeuser or Georgia Pacific came through and clear-cut lots of Brookline. We lost it 1 tree, 2 tree, 15 trees at a time, often with the comment, well, it's only 2, 3, 10, 15 trees that we're losing. There are a lot of others, but it adds up. 54 football fields of tree canopy. And 2020 is the most recent data we have. I hope that gets better, but we're still down those 71 acres or 54 football fields. So third, let's look at the particular area where 26 Pleasant Street is. The master plan noted that that area, and they used precincts as they existed in 2020, has the lowest tree canopy coverage in all of Brookline, 24.9%. Townwide average is closer to 44, 45%. But even if you just look at North Brookline, it's 35%. So this is precisely the area where trees are the most deficient. And this deficiency of trees was noted in the master plan. And this area, and as Steve Hyken pointed out, is also prioritized for housing in the housing production plan. But this very block was identified as a targeted tree canopy expansion area. What were the criteria for identifying those areas? Well, heat island, high temperatures, low tree canopy coverage, below 30%, environmental justice areas with tree canopy less than 47%, and affordable housing, predominant areas, or high percentage of affordable housing areas with less than 30% tree canopy. So this is precisely the area where we're lacking trees, and we've already planned in our master plan for trees to try to prioritize the additions to trees. So I'm not sure how this will eventually turn out, but I just want to make the very point that this is precisely where we need trees. Let's not remove healthy, mature trees in the place where we need them most here in Brookline. We can do better. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Sean. With apologies to Fran, Susie's back. I'm going to ask Susie, if you wish, could you unmute? And if you'd like to turn on your camera, you should be able to do so.
Good question about turning on my camera, because, okay, how about that? Can you guys see me? Okay,
can.
great. Hi, everyone. My name is Susie Roberts. I'm a precinct member of, I'm a town meeting member of Precinct 17. I am speaking on behalf of constituents that I've been hearing from about this program, along with myself. And I also wanted to say that I'm an attorney, real estate environmental attorney in Boston, and in the past I have dealt with some of Todd's predecessors at Nordblum, including Steve Logan and Peter Barber, who I found to be incredibly reflective, engaged, and fair in projects and committees that I worked with them on. So I'm a little bit disappointed that the project that we're looking at right now doesn't seem to me to be fitting in the area. I'm finding that the choices to be, looked at to compare the project to, for the 80-foot FAR, the 80-foot height, the quadrupling of the FAR for this project, are a little bit disappointing, and I support what has been said already about open space and about trees in particular by Sean and Elisa, and supportive of the letters that have been written by Catherine and the others who are mentioned, Gina, who have been mentioned to be talking about trees. I live on Green Street. I live a few doors down from Nordblum's other project. And what also concerns me is the quickening of the pace of attempting to develop properties by means of rezoning them rather than going through the process under 40A where there could be a variance involved or a special permit required. And that is troubling to me because I know that it is happening throughout the state of Massachusetts and other communities that approaching a development that you want to do that is outside of the current zoning simply by rezoning that parcel, is a tactic. It's a strategy, and towns are very very much without leverage to do much about this kind of approach, which, is upending zoning as we know it. And, in point of fact, as I said, I live in Coolidge Corner on Green Street, just a few doors down, from John Street. And in fact, it seems like if I were to build a project and the zoning overlay happened to go a little further and include my building, I could build on what's now a two-family house on 9,000 square feet. If we were to quadruple that FAR, I could build 36,000 square feet worth of housing there on my build. I don't think this is what Brookline wants. And yet this is what we are starting to do by, granting projects on a piece by piece basis, through town meeting, which potentially is a 50% vote at this point. And it just doesn't seem like Brookline should be heading in that direction without really giving thoughtful consideration to what we are doing with each parcel that's coming up. We know that 26 Pleasant Street is right across John Street from the Waldo Durgan project, which has already been rezoned by an overlay district. And at the time, I was on the study committee for that particular project, and at the time, there was some talk of including 26 Pleasant as part of the Waldo Durgan overlay district. And it was thought not to go forward with that because there weren't any plans for development. Now that there are plans for redevelopment, I think it's important for us to be looking at what's going to go on 26 Pleasant in conjunction with the Waldo Durgan overlay district as we have it now. Maybe the town wants to make a bigger overlay district. I don't think Steve Hyken's idea was bad at all to look at a bigger place. It gets out of, one project, for one particular zoning change, and which I just think is a bad way to go, especially where we as a town have fully supported the comprehensive plan process, which is nearing its end. This particular, parcel is part of the comprehensive plan. What are we doing? Rushing to, to take this out of context of, this area of town, in a warrant article, and it becomes, it becomes like a beauty contest, a popularity contest. Who knows what is going to happen, with trying to obtain votes. I think everyone wants multifamily housing there, which is allowed. And unfortunately, Taylor's presentation made it seem like a change was going to be multifamily housing in this particular parcel. In fact, there's already multifamily, allowed here. It's an M1 district. My understanding is that there would be 25 to 30 by right units allowed by right on this parcel. So we are definitely going to have multifamily housing here, which I think is great. But we're losing a lot of open space, and the whole concept of, doing something beneficial for the community, which I support, which is what we were hoping to get from Waldo Durgan, and which we want to get from a lot of projects, including this one, has to be something more meaningful than a 2,100 square foot, quote unquote, parklet or, pocket park. I'm sorry, that is nothing. And Mark Cirillo makes a really good point about the shadows there. It is, in the wintertime, a nightmare of ice because there's no sun there in the winter. And I imagine in the summer as well, there's not going to be. So what looks nice in a picture isn't reality. And I just want us to slow down and sort of figure out what makes sense for this parcel in the context of Waldo Durgan, in the context of nearing, of having John Street, Pleasant Street, and Beacon Street all together. There is this triangle. It is a heat island, as, I'm sure you'll hear a lot of. And the fact that the setbacks, who knows how they come up with these setbacks, and everything is done so that they can build and make the profit that they want to make. Of course, we understand that, all of us do, but there needs to be
I'm
more.
sorry. Can I ask you to wrap up?
Absolutely.
We're hoping people would keep it to 3 minutes, and we've gone. I appreciate what you're saying, but just want to wrap up.
I
Please,
apologize. So I'll just conclude to say that I'm really hoping to work with Norbloom. We've asked them to go to lunch with us and so forth. We have not, ended up doing something like that, to really have a discussion about what would be beneficial for the community as a whole, and particularly in this area. So I look forward to that. But thank you very much.
Thank you for your comment, Susie. Next will be Fran, and then Jonathan Klein.
Hi, Fran Perler. So I'm a former town meeting member of Precinct 8, a member of the Council on Aging and the AC, but I'm talking totally on my own behalf, nothing to do with them. I actually don't mind the fact that they're building an apartment building here. I'd rather see an apartment building next to other apartment buildings than next to single family or two family houses. But what drives people of my constituency and the moderate people crazy is trying to shove in every single inch of massing, and so that there are no setbacks. There's no room for anything, you maximize everything. One of the things I noticed on your plan was on John Street, you're going to have a 15-foot setback to a curb, a street, whereas on the Sussman House side, it's 12 feet, and you have housing there, and you have trees that you don't own, that there, as Elisa has said, there's no way that those trees will survive construction if there's a 10-foot setback. I wouldn't mind seeing the pocket park over there to save the trees. So what I'm saying is that apartments are great, adding housing is great, but do you have to use every inch? And the fact that I really appreciate Jeffrey Allen saying that he wants to follow the tree bylaw. However, there are two parts of the tree bylaw. In the beautiful pictures he's shown, he shows these beautiful trees that are there that average 50 years old and are very tall. He can choose for his property to cut them all down and mitigate and pay money, or he can save them. And if he saves them, as other people have said, but you need to have a tree root save area, and 10 feet isn't going to do it. It's just going to kill those trees. So I'm trying to wrap my head around, if you have an overlay that allows the building to be built so close to the border where there are abutters trees that they don't own, and they're going to kill within a couple of years if they do that, how do we... I can't wrap my mind around the fact that it has these beautiful pictures of 50-year-old trees, and yet you have these setbacks that potentially will kill it. So I want you to move the building closer to John Street and make the setback bigger there. The final thing, so you get the picture, and I'm not going to reiterate all the wonderful things trees do, and the fact that seniors are very sensitive, are more sensitive than the general population to heat islands, and having the calming trees, and all of those things are important to them. The last thing I would like to urge Mr. Allen and Norblom is to find a better way to get neighborhood interaction, because it seems that Brookline for Everyone knew about the meeting last week or 2 weeks ago at the church, but none of the neighbors knew. And so we need to have all the neighbors and all the different people interested in, Mothers Out Front, the town meeting members of all the precincts, find Brookline for Everyone. Everybody needs to be aware. And I hate to say this, I know people don't like paper, but sending all the people in the area a postcard, would be greatly appreciated, because then you truly have neighborhood input. Thank you.
Thank you, Fran. Appreciate those comments. Next will be Jonathan Klein and then Lynn Pavelke.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Jonathan Klein, I'm a town meeting member in precinct 17, where this is located. I'm a board member of the Housing Advisory Board, also a commissioner of the Brookline Housing Authority, also a director on the board of Brookline for Everyone, and I speak only for myself. I only want to say one thing, which is that I've sent this out before to the town meeting mailing list, but maybe everyone here doesn't know this, that there was a proposal in 1978 or 1979 by B'nai B'rith Housing, which is a nonprofit housing provider that is active in the Boston area and around Brookline, to build a 125-unit apartment building on this site. It would have been 100% subsidized. by the federal government. It would have been for low-income seniors. It came with a $5.3 million grant from the Department of Housing that would have paid 97% of the costs. And our select board initially approved that proposal and then changed their mind and disapproved it. So it never got built, and we've had a asphalt parking lot ever since, as far as I can tell. So I'm delighted. You all know I'm a housing person. I'm delighted to see a proposal to put a significant amount of housing on this site, and I applaud Nordblum for bringing it forward. Certainly there will be tweaks and changes as it moves forward through the community engagement process. I appreciate that you have stepped forward to have community engagement and schedule the meeting at the church and also schedule this meeting with the planning board. There'll, as Mr. Allen said, there will be many more meetings that everybody will have an opportunity to go to and express their opinion. But I appreciate the opportunity to finally, after 50 years, have housing on this site. And as my friend Al Rain said, in this really extraordinarily perfect location for housing near transit, parks, the bookstore, the theater, and all the wonderful amenities we have in Coolidge Corner. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. Next will be Linda Pelkey and then Michael Rubenstein.
Good evening. I'm Linda Olson Pelkey, a town meeting member, Precinct 17. I am an urban planner, and I am also the vice chair of the Comprehensive Plan Steering Committee. And I agree with all of the comments about the trees and needing more open space on this site. But what I want the planning board to really try to wrap their head around is it's not about, oh, okay, we have this proposal, now we're going to try to tweak the design. We really are talking about the zoning now, and now is our chance. And in my mind, when I see the extreme increase in the FAR, the quadrupling, and the drastic reduction in the setbacks and open space, I start thinking about the usual process of public benefits and counterbalancing amenities and finding out how to mitigate some of these impacts and finding out how to actually make it fit in the neighborhood. And this process, to Susie Roberts' point, is not going to help us with that, because if we just pass this zoning, it's over. I mean, all of this talk about the design review, we all know, we've all been through it. We've all been on these committees. You cannot really fundamentally change anything about this once the zoning parameters pass, because we don't have any leverage. So I would like us to scale back the changes that were made between the M1 and the M4 and have it be less of a drastic change in terms of the envelope within which we can negotiate. And I think we need to establish a way to involve the neighborhood and have an actual negotiation rather than being talked to, which is what we've had so far. We've been talked to. The sell job has been given to us. And I also have to disagree with all these statements about how the building is so much in scale with its surroundings, because it's not in scale with the surroundings directly behind it on John Street, the townhouses that are, I believe, 35 feet tall, which this will loom over drastically. And to the point about Waldo Durgan, whatever Waldo Durgan turns out to be, it would be a much better project if it were done in conjunction and in thinking about impacts and maybe even switching up locations for parking, et cetera, between these several projects that are all large scale, all in the area, the 40B on Beacon Street, Waldo Durgan, and this. It is overwhelming to our infrastructure, to the scale of the sidewalks, and the streets are not wide, they're not broad, everything is narrow and tight. And the buildings on Green Street and John Street are of a much more human scale. And this is not fitting in because there are no setbacks or step backs of meaning. So I would like to see a smaller envelope to start with in terms of giving the neighborhood something better to work with in terms of meeting the needs of the neighborhood. So I just think it's a mistake to pass it as is. I think it is far, far too generous.
All right,
So
thank you
that's
for your
my
comments,
comment.
Linda.
Yeah.
Before Michael starts, I just want to remind any member of the public who wishes to speak, you can use the react button at the bottom of the screen and raise your hand, and you'll get promoted in turn. But Michael, welcome.
Thank you. My name is Michael Rubenstein. I'm a member of the select board, but I am speaking for myself. First of all, I want to thank Nordblum and Jeffrey Allen and his team as well for bringing this to the planning board for a public discussion before the filing deadline. I think that this provides opportunities for feedback and comments that allow you to incorporate changes before the filing that would not be allowed after. And in that sense, I'd like to offer two suggestions for your consideration and the consideration of the planning board. The first is to memorialize, if you intend to build the pocket park, to memorialize some percentage of the setback on Pleasant Street being of a greater depth, and some other percentage being a lesser depth, as opposed to a single percentage along the entire length, which would provide some assurance that there will actually be space for the pocket park there that you described. And the other suggestion that I would make is that if you look at section, I believe it is section 15 of the Chestnut Hill commercial area zoning, there is a section there on tree canopy and tree canopy requirements. And looking at that and incorporating a section on tree canopies into your zoning overlay district as well would also help potentially mitigate some of the concerns that have expressed about the amount of tree cover that will be produced. And there are options within that for the amount of tree cover and where that tree cover goes. And as part of that potential mitigation, I would also, in addition to considering the library across the street, also encourage you to consider working with the town to add tree canopy to the public way, either in front of your building or along that block, as another area that your contributions to the tree canopy would be most helpful. As Mr. Lynn Jones suggested, this area is particularly lacking in tree canopy, and we should, as a town, I believe, take advantage of this opportunity in the public way as well, in order to add to the tree canopy during the development of this project. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael. I don't see any other hands up. So I'm going to offer Attorney Allen and the team, if there's anything that you heard tonight you want to respond to now, please do. This was a hearing, you're taking information and you may not have a response. But the one thing I was thinking about, you mentioned, I think a couple of times, that Copley Wolf has not fully been engaged yet.
They're getting ramped up. They're going to do a site visit next week.
Great.
Michael, what was the section of the zoning that you referred to on tree canopies?
It's the section 15 of the Chestnut Hill.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And Taylor's been taking notes.
Yeah, so have I.
But I want to say
Go ahead.
thank you, Michael. Those are two very constructive comments. And one of the things we've been thinking of is not only in the public way, but maybe connecting with the BHA on their abutting property, maybe increasing the tree canopy there is also a possibility. So yes, both of those suggestions we'll look into. And that, one of the reasons we accepted this invitation was, one, because we really didn't have a choice. But number two is that we could get feedback before we filed the warrant article, that there might be things that we could incorporate. And so we're going to do that. And I want to thank you, Mr. Chairman. And this feedback is healthy. And we understand where we have to go. But the only thing I want to disagree with someone on, and I think it might have been Ms. Pelkey, I've been doing this a long time. And I think I've even been doing it longer than Steve Hyken. I have found that the DAT process is probably the best zoning amendment we ever made, because I've seen every project that I've been through there and I've seen gone through there comes out a better project for the process. And I think that process works. And that's one of the reasons I convinced Nordblum to put this in the zoning, that we would go through that process. Because and I didn't have to, they've seen it. The project comes out a better project for it. So I think the DAT is a very strong mechanism the town has to make a project better and more neighborhood friendly. So we heard what was said tonight. We're still working on the drawing board, and we look forward to working with you in the future, and thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, as I was starting to say, I do think if you can get Copley to start developing at least an initial landscape plan, it'd be a helpful visual reference for the people who are interested in that aspect of it. It's great to have the architectural renderings, but to what you said, that the trees and the plantings that are not necessarily as intended would help to clarify the intent, even though it's about zoning. I don't know whether a tree protection plan based purely on the hypothetical building that you talked about is possible, but just demonstrate what is or is not possible. And I'll also say, if you're willing and able, one of the first things we did on one of the DATs is show us what the underlying zoning is, just simple massing model. What could you build as of right? So the comparison is not parking lot to 7-story building, but as of right to 7-story building. I think this is to Linda's point, like what is actually allowed, and what would that look like? It may not be financially feasible. It may not be something that Nordblum would want to invest in. And I think it'd be helpful for people to understand kind of you could build this, but it wouldn't be profitable. We'd lose money on it, whatever the helping understand why.
You're absolutely correct. It would be a 25,000 square foot or something like that. And with the construction cost today and so forth, but we'll do that. And that's a good point. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So before we close this part, is there any final or following comments from planning board members now that you've heard some of the public input? Seeing none, we'll move on to our next case. But thank you all. Appreciate the time.
Thank you very much.
Members of the public who came out, very much appreciate hearing from you all and appreciate the letters as well. That's great for the record.
Thank you all.
All right, our next item
is a presentation and discussion.
Oh yes, special permit authority.
The idea of the planning board being the special permit granting authority for certain cases for single and two-family dwellings that need zoning relief, if that zoning relief is special permit relief. And Select Board has been urging the planning department to think about ways to streamline the approval process and to foster development. But the thought in the planning department was that why not first do this for single and family dwellings? Because there you have homeowners who, for the most part, want to build an addition, they want to build dormers, they want to maybe build a garage. And they have to go through a kind of a duplicative process where they have their architect and their engineer and their attorney go to the planning board and then go to the Board of Appeals pretty much, to give the same presentation. And Cameron and I looked at the cases that we did in 2025. And of all the cases, most of which were for single and two-family dwellings requesting relief, in every case where the planning board recommended approval with conditions, the Board of Appeals also approved the project. Now, in many cases, those cases went several times to the planning board. And during those several visits, the plans changed in response to your, your suggestions. Typically, by the time they get to the Board of Appeals, the Board of Appeals is happy to let you do design review. And they look more at the legal aspects. So the thought was that we might develop a potential zoning amendment that for certain cases, not for variances, and perhaps not for cases where full demolition of a principal dwelling is going to be demolished, that those cases would still go to the Board of Appeals. That we could have the planning board be the special permit granting authority. So Cameron, if you could put up the first slide for the PowerPoint presentation that I put together, that would be helpful. Thank you. We can go to the second slide.
Can you guys see that second slide?
Yes.
That's perfect. So, as I said, we reviewed the 2025 cases, and there were approximately 50 applications, and all of those were granted special permit relief by the ZBA with positive recommendations from the planning board to grant that special permit relief. And 70% of those applications were located in both the single and two-family districts. Many of them argued successfully under chapter MGL chapter 40A, section 6, which allows for extending a pre-existing nonconformity if the board finds that it won't be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood. If it's not a section 6 case and you find you recommend a special permit, you have to find that it's not substantially detrimental to the abutter. But for the section 6 cases, the standard's a little bit different. It's to the neighborhood as a whole. Of those projects, the additional gross floor area requested ranged from 28 square feet, which I could argue shouldn't even be going to the planning board, to 24,000 square feet, which was the country club clubhouse, which was certainly an outlier, with the median being 434 square feet. And this does not include projects that received approval to demolish a structure and construct a new one, unless that project was granted relief under Chapter 40A, Section 6. So there would be a lot of benefits to this. If you could put up the next slide, Cameron. Thank you. There would be a lot of benefits. It would be a quicker review process because you'd only have one meeting, not two. It would save homeowners time and money because they wouldn't have to pay their architect and lawyer to come twice to two different meetings. It would lighten the caseload for the ZBA, but ironically not make the caseload more heavy for the planning board because you're seeing these cases anyway. It would decrease the planning and building staff time attending these evening ZBA hearings and writing minutes and posting the minutes and all. It would decrease for the town the cost of the mailings to abutters and renters by sending mail notices just once for one meeting. And it would retain the newspaper notice, which now goes in the paper just for the ZBA hearing. Now, for those cases, it would go in for the planning board meeting. And of course, we also have a sign on the property notifying the public that is going to be subject to a zoning relief. It would lessen the time commitment of members, for members of the public interested in attending and speaking at meetings. And I know sometimes the public likes 2 bites at the apple. They like to make their case twice. But for the most part, it's at the planning board that people come out and voice their opinion. And it's at the planning board that you will add conditions to respond to concerns that the public have. And lastly, it would retain the same appeals process to land or superior court. Originally, I'd hoped that these cases could be, if someone wanted to appeal the planning board decision, that it could be appealed to the Board of Appeals. But town council has advised that that is strictly not legal. The appeals process would have to be to land or superior court, as it is now for the ZBA cases. So this is something we'd like to consider for the fall town meeting. I did give the same presentation to the ZBA. I was tempted to give you their comments, but I first wanted to hear your comments. At a later date, you'll see their comments, because I wanted to hear how you felt about it and whether you would be positive and maybe even consider sponsoring this. So with that, I would be happy to answer any questions or have the board make comments, and then we could take public comments.
Your last slide answered a couple of the questions about process that I had. I'm curious, do you have a sense the cost of going to Brookline ZBA versus the cost of going to land or superior court? I mean, obviously that's a decision for the applicant to make, but is that a much more costly process? I have no visibility to it.
Well, if someone wants to appeal a case that went to the ZBA, it's got to be to land or superior court. It would be the same thing. So
but where that is the third step in the current process, it would be the second step, right? So say they have a project, the planning board decides no on the special permit. Their only option is now land or superior court. Fine. Is that a more expensive outlay of money in terms of legal fees and time? And Steve, I don't know if you're asking the question or you have an answer to that, but that was the only question I have. I'm all for making this process easier. I always, when they say go to the ZBA, like, really? Okay. So I'm aligned with this.
The point is, if the ZBA is making the decision, that is the board that has to be appealed. And so you can't, is comparing apples and oranges, because the person has to go to land court if they want to appeal a decision now. And so they'd have to do it under the new system as well. So it would be the same cost, but minus the cost of going to the Board of, the time and expense of going to the Board of Appeals.
Yeah, I suppose you're skipping a step. Okay, that makes sense.
Are we taking on more liability then?
Liability, if you
Also legal, I don't know. It's not my area of expertise.
Well, it's a good question. I mean, I could ask town council, but
I think we are. I mean, when
you could, you're
lawsuits
going to
are
be
initiated,
appealed.
they sue the zoning board typically, or maybe both.
Yeah,
I mean,
but
I
it
raised my
is
hand
the town
because-
that defends you.
Mhm.
Okay.
I raised my hand when Matt was asking that question about, not being familiar with what happens when it goes to court. I'm not a lawyer either, but I know that at a minimum takes a lot more time to get anywhere, much more time. My sense about this idea, which I think makes a lot of sense, is that, it doesn't take a lot more time to go from the planning board to the zoning board. We often see zoning board hearings within a week or a couple of weeks. And you're right, sometimes the planning board looks at a project several times, but like you said, for 2025, I think if you went back further, you would find the same pattern that almost every single case that we recommend approval of in a simple single or two family addition or modification, the zoning board also approves it. It's almost like a rubber stamp, and they really do. I mean, there's only one architect on the zoning board in the first place, and even he does not show up at every meeting. They have a rotating panel. The others are all lawyers. And so it does seem like even if it's only another couple of weeks, it is another meeting for everybody involved. It is more time. It is a bit more money. And the ogre of having to go to land court if there's a dispute is hanging over there anyway. If the planning board and the zoning board both approve something and then abutters want to file suit, and we know they do that, especially in 40B cases, and then they take forever. I mean, look at the 40B project on Route 9 near the fire station. It's been held up in court.
No, there's no doubt that
Yeah.
once it goes to court, it's a very slow process.
So I think your slides did answer one of my questions. I was wondering whether this would apply to 48 Section 6 cases, which I guess it should and does.
It could. Yes.
And what about the situation where there is a tear down and replacement? I mean, sometimes those don't even need a special permit if they're.
Well, if they don't need a special permit,
Yeah,
then
then
it'd be
none of this
right
happens.
anyway.
But where there's a tear down and replacement, some of which does happen under Chapter 48, Section 6, if the existing building was already non-conforming in terms of floor area ratio or setbacks, and it can be torn down. I remember there's an infamous case on Clyde Street. Building was torn down, a much bigger building was proposed under Section Section 6. But where the criterion is only substantially detrimental to the neighborhood. I mean, so I guess, so what's the issue about?
My rationale for that would be that we would like to dissuade people from doing full demolition of single and two-family buildings. And therefore, why should they have a shorter, quicker?
So those types of projects would not come under this.
Right,
sort
they
of
would
path.
not.
Okay.
I mean, they could if that's what you decided you wanted, but it seemed to me that we wouldn't in any way want to support the tearing down of single and two-family buildings. Now, this is not tearing it down to build an apartment building necessarily, but tearing it down to build another single family, as you said, or two-family.
I would just add one other thing, planning board members don't attend zoning board hearings because they're usually at the same time. And I don't do this often, but every once in a while I've looked at a zoning board report on a case. Sometimes they're included because there's a previous action on a case that we hear. And I see how these reports go on for page after page of legal,
The decision,
and it seems like they just spent a lot of time reviewing relatively simple cases. At least once we've satisfied ourselves that the design works, they spend lots of time talking about these projects. At least by the length of their reports.
First of all, the interesting thing is you're not the same night because Cameron and I, they're alternate nights. So the planning board's one Thursday night, ZBA is the next Thursday night. But the ZBA does not spend nearly as long really discussing cases as the planning board does. But the decisions, which are, a legal document, are longer because they have to go through, all the relief. But basically, the decisions are really just the planning board reports, and then kind of they have to include things like the legal notice that was put in, and then you have to say how the special permit criteria is met, which is really all boilerplate. So it's the same in every report where there's special permit is required. So it's really only for the complicated cases that the ZBA decisions are all that long.
Okay. I remember that we spent the same night because we'd hear attorneys appearing before us having to then run upstairs to go to the zoning boards. That doesn't happen anymore.
It happens, there are sometimes, but no, that doesn't usually happen.
Okay, I'm
in the few cases that come back to the planning board from the ZBA, what were those reasons? And was there any insight that the ZBA had that we missed?
Usually when they come back to the planning board for final design review, it's because actually one of the things the ZBA members did say when this was presented to them was that they really do not like doing design review. They don't feel qualified to do design review. They would like to stick to the legal issues, and they would like not to have any design review cases.
All right, let's go.
Let's do it.
Taste police. Dun, dun, dun.
Do
I
you
don't
need
know.
an action from us, or is this just you're letting us know this is being discussed and it
Oh,
would need to be
Oh,
made?
I would like to you know, hear whether you think this is a good idea to go forward with this. One, the planning department can submit this, or the planning board could submit it if you wanted to. But we do have some public members here. Maybe we should hear from them and then hear back from the board, from planning board, how they feel.
Yeah, can I just say one thing? So you have takens by Jonathan Simpson. So we aren't doing something against state laws and that kind of thing with this.
Correct.
Okay.
And if
There are
and if
many
we-
municipalities where the planning board is a special permit granting authority.
Okay.
And it's not a problem for the planning board to make a proposed zoning change that empowers them more. I'm just thinking about our current political situation. Is it better for planning staff to file it and then for us
I
to
think
endorse
that's
it as
okay.
we'll take the responsibility. We're happy to help, but
That's a good point.
I
Yeah.
think there may be some out there who would look at this, because I've heard this kind of thing, as a power grab by the planning board.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good point. Kara had asked me to ask you whether you would like to sponsor, but I think you're right. I think it should be the planning department that sponsors it if we go forward with this.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense to me as well.
Yeah, I agree.
Five members of the public who are here. If any of you have comment on this item on the agenda and you'd like to make a comment or ask a question, please use the react button, raise your hand. All right, so seeing none. Thank you for the information and the presentation, Polly. What you said the
I would like to
ZBA?
hear whether you feel favorable towards this. or-
Yes, yeah. Yes for me. Do you
Yeah.
want to do a vote or no? It's
Yes for
informal.
I have to do a vote, but I just,
Okay.
you know,
Blair, if you're still there, do you have an opinion on this?
I don't know if
He
he's-
was unmuted. I think you went the other way.
Okay.
Doesn't the applicant's attorney usually write up the final resolution of the
They
decision?
help, they draft it, and then the staff reads it, then we give it to the chair who reads it. And so there are often changes made to the draft.
So the chair has more work.
Yes,
Yeah.
but you know something, they're very much boilerplate, where you just put in the ad, then you put in the planning board report, you put in, you know, what the planning board staff reported, and then the conditions. It really is not rocket science. Except for complicated, you know, there are complex cases, but those are more like variance cases or where there are legal issues involved.
So does the ZBA support this?
They do,
Okay,
they do, and I will get you their comments.
all
I
right.
don't want to influence you too much.
No, that's great. I've been curious. I was trying to find the recording of their hearing so I could hear what was discussed, but I did not find it in time, so. All right.
Jumping the
Thank you for
gun.
that, Polly. So we have one last item, which
please.
is
We have an
the,
A&R, an
A&R.
which means approval not required, which means that the planning board does not approve the plan, but you endorse it saying that your approval is not required. And what you need to do is look at whether there is frontage on a road and real frontage, so that if there's a cliff or something, you know, or you're on a highway where you might not get access, then you could say, you know, we won't sign this, or so with that, Cameron, can I ask you to put up the A&R plan for 43 Fairgreen Place? And I had asked them to give us a colored plan because you may remember that there was discussion. Let me tell you, this is a cluster development in South Brookline near the Exxon gas station, tucked away, called Fairgreen because it's on the green of the golf course. And there was a single family house on one of the lots, and the proposal was to demolish that house, to subdivide that lot into 3 lots and build 3 single family houses. And your board was concerned about the kind of the frontage and suggested a swap be made. Can you put it? Let's see, that this is not the colored copy.
Let's
Yeah,
see if
this
I
is
can
the
find
case
the
we
color
saw
copy.
multiple times.
Yeah, I remember this.
You remember, so they did a swap of land so that the area in front of one of the houses could be much nicer and larger, and then gave the side piece to the neighbors so that there'd actually be more separation.
So
I think it also
to approve-
accommodated a positioning change or rotation for one of the 3 new buildings and a driveway configuration that
Okay.
made more sense.
So I know this isn't color, but you can kind of see on the right, yeah, where the cursor is, that land is given to this house on the right. And they gave some land that's in front of lot C to lot C.
Yeah, right, I remember this. Yeah.
So we're just being asked to endorse this land swap of this
You're
subdivision.
not being asked to endorse the land swap. They had to make the land swap. You're being asked to endorse this plan where they divided this one lot into this configuration, so.
So this specific dimensional land swap.
Yes, yes.
I mean, I'm
Well,
gonna
well,
trust that the
subdivision.
building footprints make sense here. That would be my only frame of reference, but it seems consistent with what we had talked about coming back for this land
It's
swap
definitely
thing.
consistent. It's exactly what you recommended be approved.
And in the design drawings that included the buildings and the site, is the line generally where it was supposed to be?
Exactly like this.
Okay.
So it's sort of ironic that after we just talked about simplifying the way some of the projects that come to the town are processed, that we still have this process where I know we don't approve, we endorse, but in effect, we approve something for which approval is not required. So
Well, this is entirely different from your chapter 40A cases. I mean, it was a 40A case in that the sense that they needed some zoning relief.
oh yeah, right. Yeah, I'm not talking about
This
that,
is
but
different.
these subdivision things where that's the A&R.
Yeah.
It doesn't take a
And the
lot of time to do
interesting
this, but
thing-
every time we do it, it seems like, why do we do this?
Yeah, well, apparently only Massachusetts has this, or very few states have this, and it's kind of crazy. It is. But that's the way.
Well, if it's a thing only Massachusetts has, that makes it cooler in my book, so it's fine.
Oh, okay.
So we just need
A motion?
Yeah, but I actually, I just want to take public comment if there is any. We do have 3 members of the public here. So if any of you would like to make a comment on this, I think they can, right?
Well, you don't have to take public comment because there was actually no notice. It's really just a question of whether they have access on a road. on a
Yep.
public road. But you're welcome. I mean,
Yeah, I don't see anyone raising hands. I think we're okay to keep going. So the motion would be that we agree we do not need to approve this.
you're endorsing the plan.
Yep.
As approval not required.
And somebody has to go to town hall and sign some copies.
All
And
right, so
yes.
so I move that the planning board endorse this site plan. I don't have the date on it, for 43 Fairgreen Place as reviewed at tonight's meeting. Can I get a second?
Second.
325-26.
I think I heard Mark's voice, so let's take Mark's second and we'll do the roll call. So Mark,
Yes.
Linda,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Tommy,
Aye.
Blair. Not sure if you can hear us. And chair votes aye. So
So it's approved. And then the very last thing, which is very quick, is just to formally appoint Michael O'Connor to the Brookline Avenue DAT. He's from the Park and Recreation Commission, and as you know, the property does back up to the Emerald Necklace.
yep, that makes
So we
sense.
just need a vote.
So move to add Michael. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Linda. We'll do roll call. So Linda,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
Tommy,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
Blair, and the chair votes aye.
Thank you.
I'm taking Blair's turn
Blair
off
in the
mute, turn
void.
on mute as yes. Thank you for bearing with us, Blair, from your trip.
Thank you very
Good
much.
luck with the rest of your ride, Blair. All right, have a good night,
All
everyone.
right.
Night all.
Man.